The bear stared into his eyes. What happened next was totally unexpected. The forest was unervingly quiet that evening. Tall pines swayed gently in the wind, but no birds sang, no insects buzzed. It was the kind of silence that pressed against a man's chest, warning him that something unseen was lurking nearby. Daniel, an experienced hiker who often ventured into remote parts of the wilderness, paused mid-step. His boots crunched softly on the layer of fallen needles, but every instinct screamed at him to stay still. And then he saw it. Just 20 yards ahead, framed between two charred stumps left from an old lightning fire, stood a massive brown bear. Its fur rippled in the fading light, golden highlights glinting across its shoulders. Its sheer size was enough to freeze Daniel's breath in his throat. But it wasn't the bulk of the animal that held him captive, it was the eyes. The bear was staring directly at him. Amber orbs locked onto his, unblinking, piercing, ancient. Daniel felt the weight of that gaze, as if the creature were seeing straight through the layers of his fear, his strength, even his soul. His pulse thundered in his ears, each beat echoing like a war drum. He knew the rules: don't run, don't shout, don't break eye contact too suddenly. Yet, in that moment, every bit of wilderness training seemed to dissolve into the silence. It was just him and the bear, caught in a fragile thread of stillness. Seconds stretched into what felt like minutes. The forest around them held its breath. Daniel thought, this is it. This is how it ends. But the bear didn't charge. It didn't roar. It didn't even move. Instead, it simply held his gaze, steady, deliberate, and strangely calm. And in that quiet, terrifying stillness, Daniel realized something. This wasn't just an ordinary encounter. Something else was happening here. Daniel's chest rose and fell in shallow bursts. He felt rooted to the ground, as though the earth itself had swallowed his boots to keep him from moving. The bear's eyes remained fixed on his, steady and unyielding. There was no aggression in them, yet no softness either. It was a stare that seemed to balance on the razor's edge between danger and mystery. Every instinct screamed at him to look away, to drop his gaze and back off slowly. But some deeper instinct, primal, unexplainable, told him not to break the connection. The silence between them became heavier, stretching thin like glass that could shatter at any second. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry as sand. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding so loudly it almost drowned out the faint rustle of leaves overhead. A bead of sweat slid down his temple. He wondered if the bear could smell his fear, sense the electricity of his nerves. Then something strange happened. The bear tilted its massive head slightly, its gaze never wavering. For a fleeting moment, Daniel thought he saw something unexpected in those amber eyes. Not rage, not threat, but something else. Was it confusion? Curiosity? Or even, impossibly, a kind of plea? The seconds dragged on, each one an eternity. Daniel felt as though he were standing on the edge of a cliff, one wrong move away from disaster. Yet he couldn't look away. The longer he stared into those eyes, the more he felt that this encounter was different, almost deliberate. He whispered under his breath, though he didn't know why. "What do you want from me?" The bear's ears flicked, catching his voice, but it didn't move forward. It only blinked slowly, as if acknowledging the sound. And just like that, the tension shifted. The fear in Daniel's chest eased by a fraction, replaced by a strange sense of waiting, as though the bear was trying to tell him something. Whatever was about to happen next, Daniel sensed it would change everything. The air felt charged, heavy with unspoken meaning. Daniel kept his body still, every muscle tense but controlled, waiting for the bear to make its move. And then slowly it did. Instead of lunging forward, the bear lowered its massive head toward the ground. Its shoulders slumped slightly, no longer towering in full dominance. Daniel blinked, struggling to comprehend what he was seeing. Bears didn't act like this, at least not in any survival manual he had read. The animal let out a deep, low huff, not aggressive, but almost weary. It shuffled a step backward, then paused, watching him intently, as though waiting for his response. Daniel's breath caught. This was no challenge. It was something different, something strange. The bear turned its head toward the thick brush at its side, then back at Daniel. Again that steady stare, a deliberate flick of the eyes, urging him to look. Daniel's pulse skipped. Was it trying to show him something? A crack of twigs came from the shadows. For a brief, terrifying moment, Daniel thought another bear might emerge, a mate, or worse, a cub's protective mother. But what happened instead sent a chill down his spine. A soft, pitiful sound broke the silence. A cry, thin, high-pitched, unmistakable. Daniel froze. He knew that sound. It wasn't the voice of a predator. It was the desperate whimper of something vulnerable. His eyes darted to the side of the clearing. There, just beyond the thicket, movement stirred. He leaned slightly, squinting. And then he saw it, a small fragile figure curled near the brush, its fur matted, its body trembling. A cub. Daniel's mind reeled. The massive bear in front of him wasn't here to hunt. It wasn't here to threaten. It was here because of that cub. And for the first time since the encounter began, Daniel understood. This bear wasn't staring into his eyes as a predator sizing up prey. It was a mother, pleading with him to see. Daniel's breath caught as the reality sank in. The massive bear before him was a mother, and the cries from the brush confirmed it. The cub, small and weak, barely had the strength to lift its head. Its whimpering was faint, almost lost in the wind, but it carried enough desperation to pierce Daniel's chest. He glanced back at the mother. Her amber eyes burned into his, and in that moment, he understood something astonishing. She wasn't simply warning him away. She was asking for something. The cub tried to move, dragging itself feebly across the ground, but collapsed again with a pitiful moan. Daniel's throat tightened. The little one was starving. Its ribs showed faintly beneath its patchy fur, and its tiny frame trembled as if every breath was a battle. Daniel knew enough about wildlife to recognize the danger. A starving cub in the wild didn't have much time. The mother, powerful as she was, could not provide the kind of help the cub needed. But here she was, standing her ground, not chasing Daniel away, but holding him in place with that unblinking gaze. It was unthinkable. A wild bear, especially a mother, never invited a human into her space. And yet, that was exactly what was happening. Daniel's mind raced. Could she really know that he wasn't a threat? Or was this just a desperate coincidence, a mother too overwhelmed by her cub's suffering to drive him off? Either way, the truth was undeniable. She needed help, and he was the only one there to give it. The weight of the moment pressed down on him. If he stepped forward, he risked everything, his safety, his life. But if he walked away, that cub would almost certainly die. The mother bear gave another deep rumbling exhale, then looked at the cub, then back at Daniel. The message couldn't have been clearer. She was entrusting him with her most precious treasure. Daniel stood frozen, his heart caught between terror and compassion. The cub's cries echoed softly in the still forest, each sound tugging at him like invisible strings. Every logical part of his mind screamed the same warning: don't move closer. Don't interfere. This is a wild animal, and her mother could end you in seconds. But then there was the other voice, quieter, but stronger. If you walk away, that little one won't survive the night. His eyes shifted from the cub back to the mother. She hadn't moved, but her body language was unlike anything he had ever seen. No teeth bared, no ears pinned back, no aggressive swipes of her claws. Instead, she simply stood watch, steady and patient, her gaze fixed on him. It was as if she was weighing him, testing the strength of his humanity. Daniel slowly crouched, lowering himself to the ground to appear less threatening. His breath shook in his chest. He extended a hand just slightly toward the cub, not to touch, but to show he meant no harm. The mother huffed again, low, deep, almost approving. Daniel's decision crystallized in that instant. He couldn't turn his back. Not now. Not after seeing those desperate eyes in the thicket, not after feeling the unspoken plea in the mother's stare. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "All right. I'll help." The forest around him seemed to shift at those words, as though the weight of choice had unlocked something unseen. Daniel rose carefully, inching toward the trembling cub. Each step was slow, deliberate, and filled with the awareness that one wrong move could be his last. But the mother did not stop him. She only watched. And that was when Daniel realized his life had just changed forever. Daniel knelt by the tiny cub, his hands trembling as he reached into his pack. He pulled out a piece of dried meat and a water flask, unsure if the little one was strong enough to eat. The cub sniffed weakly, then nibbled, its tiny jaws working with slow determination. Every bite seemed to revive it just a little, and Daniel felt his chest tighten with relief. He dared a glance back at the mother. She hadn't moved, but her gaze softened, no longer hard and testing, but watchful, even grateful. The rumble in her chest this time was different, more like a sigh than a warning. The cub nestled closer to Daniel's leg, its trembling easing as warmth returned to its body. Daniel's throat tightened at the sight. For a fleeting moment, he forgot the danger, forgot the wildness of the creature before him. All he saw was a mother's desperate love, and a bond forming in silence between species that should have been enemies. Slowly, Daniel stood, stepping back. The cub gave a small sound, reluctant to leave his side, but the mother moved forward at last. She nudged her little one gently, then raised her head toward Daniel. Their eyes met one final time. There was no roar, no threat, only acknowledgement. A silent thank you. With the cub now pressed safely against her massive frame, the bear turned and melted back into the forest's shadows. Daniel remained rooted in place, heart pounding, breath uneven. He knew the story would sound unbelievable if he told anyone. But in his soul he carried the truth. For a moment in the wilderness, a mother bear had trusted him with her child. And that trust had changed him forever.